lesson for January the 9th is entitled Healing Faith. The key verse is from James 5:15, which says, "And the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well. The Lord will raise him up. If they have sinned, they will be forgiven." The scripture is from Luke 7, verses 1 through 10, and 8, verses 42 through 48. The lesson focus: to be healed, we must bring our needs to God. In the overview, it says that the servant of a Roman military leader was healed in response to his master's belief that Jesus could heal. And a woman with chronic bleeding was healed when she touched Jesus' cloak. But healing is not just a matter for those alive at the time Jesus was on earth. Believers are instructed to continue to pray for healing. In the introduction, it says that many churches hold healing services, where the altars lined with seekers asking for healing for themselves or others. One person may have a chronic illness, another may be facing surgery, one may be having trouble forgiving a wrong, another may need wisdom in dealing with a difficult coworker. The requests are as varied as human needs. At such a service, you may never see an obvious, immediate miracle, like a blind person suddenly receiving sight, but you may see a premature baby survive when the odds are long, or a life-threatening illness arrested, or the healing presence of God in a person fighting cancer. You may hear people testify of the salvation of loved ones, or that God has given them peace or wisdom or strength to face difficult circumstances. Is healing an indication of strong personal faith? Does continuing illness indicate a lack of faith? These are the kinds of questions addressed in this week's lesson. In part 1, it says a centurion responded to Jesus by believing the Lord could heal his servant. And the text is from Luke 7, verses 1 through 10, which says, Jesus had finished saying all this to the people who were listening. He entered Capernaum. There a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd following him, he said, "I tell you, I have not found such great faith, even in Israel." Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. Jesus was nearing the end of a long day. He had been busy healing the sick and curing those possessed with evil spirits. In the midst of this, he was also teaching his disciples. "Love your enemies," he commanded. "Bless those who curse you, and don't judge or condemn others." After completing this message, Jesus went into Capernaum with a crowd following him. In the town there was a centurion with a highly valued servant who was sick and about to die. The centurion was a Roman soldier, an outsider in this Jewish community. Aware of his status, the centurion did not approach Jesus directly. Instead, he sent some elders of the Jews to ask Jesus to come and heal his servant. The elders added their own petition, an unusual one given the hatred the Jews had for the Romans who had conquered them. This centurion was a good man, the elders told Jesus. He loves our nation and has built our synagogue. As Jesus neared the centurion's house, the centurion sent a message saying that he was not worthy to have Jesus come to his house. Just say the word, the centurion requested, and my servant will be healed. The centurion explained that he understood power. After all, he commanded 100 soldiers who followed his orders. Jesus expressed amazement at the man's faith. This outsider, Jesus noted, exhibited greater faith than the Lord had found among his own people. The messengers returned home and found the servant well. Several things are unusual about this incident. It was unusual for a Roman to show deference to a Jew. It was unusual for Jews to intercede for a Roman. Rarely is Jesus recorded as being amazed or as commending a person's behavior, and there is no record here of what Jesus did or said to bring about the miracle. But this incident is like others Jesus performed. Healing does not occur until someone, the sick person or a friend or a master, exhibits enough faith to approach Jesus. The centurion was not the only outsider to reach out to Jesus for healing. In part 2, it says a woman responded to Jesus by reaching out for healing, and the text is from Luke 8, verses 42 through 48, which says, "Because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying, as Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. And a woman who was there had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. 'Who touched me?' Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, 'Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you.' Jesus said, 'Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me.' Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace.' Soon after healing the centurion's servant, Jesus raised a widow's son from the dead, forgave the sins of a woman who poured perfume on his feet, calmed a storm when his disciples were afraid for their lives, and freed a man possessed by a demon. Jesus had been teaching too, but it was the miracles that were drawing the crowds. Now Jesus was on his way to the home of a man who had asked Jesus to heal his dying daughter. So many people were following Jesus that the crowds almost crushed him. In the midst of this mass of people, Jesus asked, 'Who touched me?' The people denied touching him. Peter made an observation that seemed sensible, even obvious. 'Master,' Peter said, 'the people are crowding and pressing against you.' It may have seemed ridiculous to ask about a single touch among such a throng, but the touch Jesus was talking about was different than the push of the crowd. Someone had reached out and been healed. A woman who had tried to go unnoticed came trembling and fell at his feet. There, she acknowledged that it was she who had touched Jesus. The woman had reason to tremble. Like the centurion, she was an outsider. She explained that she had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. According to Mosaic law, the bleeding made her unclean, and those who touched her also became unclean until they completed the ritual for cleansing. Because she was considered unclean, her contact with people had been limited during the 12 years of her illness. She had even been excluded from worship services. Repeatedly, she had tried to get help, but no one could heal her. In her desperation, she violated the code of behavior by reaching out to touch Jesus. But she timidly touched just the edge of Jesus' cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. Perhaps at this point Jesus took her by the hand and helped her to her feet. "Your faith has healed you," Jesus told her. "Go in peace." His words of peace must have healed her spirit, so that she went away healed in both body and soul. What did Jesus mean by saying that her faith had healed her? Obviously, she had been healed by Jesus' power. She could not heal herself. So what part did her faith play in her healing? Just this: her belief that Jesus had power to heal enabled her to reach out to him for healing. There is no magic in faith and no magic in her touch. But there is power in Jesus, and it is available for those who reach out to him. The centurion and the sick woman responded to Jesus in faith, believing that he had the power to heal. With regard to sickness, how should we respond to Jesus? In today's life application, it says to examine other accounts Luke gives of people being healed. The leper in Luke 5, verses 12 and 13, for example. What common threads do you see in these accounts? Does the sick person reach out to Jesus, or does someone else exhibit faith on his or her behalf? How often does Jesus link healing and forgiveness of sin? Do you have the need for healing, physical, emotional, or spiritual? Pray specifically for healing. Ask someone to pray with you, or request the pastoral staff to anoint you for healing.